again? Because I think of Our Father, right off the bat,
Sure.
but I've heard you say prayer kind of differently.
Prayer often is used as an invocation or to intercede. I need something, or intercede in the health of my family, and a commitment of faith. That's traditional prayers. But from the deep spiritual traditions, prayer is about being. So if you, it means that you, in a very sensory way, like in a meditation, and that's why guided meditation, but more importantly, um, active imagination is so powerful. If I can actively imagine something that I would like to do, oftentimes I can manifest it, because in many respects I'm beginning to open up a new set of neural pathways. But more importantly, I'll go even further. Greg Braden talks about this in some of his works, but a lot of other spiritual teachers do too. And it's saying, if you want a prayer to be effective, you need to be the prayer. You don't talk to God. Be the prayer that you're asking God to invoke. So he talks about, Greg talked about going out with a friend he was out at, he lives in New Mexico, and he was, I believe, at the Taos Pueblo reservation, and he was visiting a friend, and his friend says, I know you're interested in prayer and stuff, so would you like to go with me? Because we haven't had rain in so long and it's killing our crops, and I'm going to go out and do a prayer for the rain. And he said, sure, I'd love to go with you. So they went out to this place which was known as the sacred place for the tribe, and he sat and got quiet for about 3 minutes. So his friend sat there for 3 minutes and got up and said, let's go. And Greg, according to the story that he tells, is he said, well, I thought you were going to do a prayer. And he was assuming there was going to be a ritual and a ceremony, and maybe some rattles and some dancing. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't the prayer he thought it was going to be, and it wasn't vocal. So he said, I thought you were going to pray. And he said, well, I already did. And he said, well, I didn't see it or hear it. And he says, oh, you misunderstand prayer. Prayer is being the prayer. And he said, so as you learn, and you learn to do be a presence and quiet your mind and everything else, then you visualize and experience in your body rain. And he said, for 3 minutes I sat there and I was experiencing raindrops on my body, and being soaked in my clothes, and sitting in mud. And I've had all those experiences. I drew all of that, and it brought it right into that moment where I've just, not saying I'm bringing it in, I just was. And he said, so, if the prayer was heard and I did a good enough job of being rain, we'll see. So they went into town, Taos, and to a local pub, and got a beer and a hamburger, and it started raining. And obviously it got his attention, Greg's attention. And so, and it rained a lot. And so 3 days later, he runs into his friend, and he says, it hadn't rained enough. And his friend basically told him, he says, that's been the problem we've had. We know how to turn it on, but we don't know how to turn it off. Which I would go a step further. If he returned to that spot and became the prayer of sunshine, the rain would stop. But the interesting thing that Greg added to that was, there was no forecast of rain, nowhere near the area. And suddenly, at the time he started doing the prayer, clouds formed about 20 miles away and started shaping and drawing moisture, and came down and sat over the area that he had requested the prayer, and then it traveled back up and left. And meteorologists had no explanation at that time of what happened. So scientifically, there's no explanation for it, and you can't poo-poo it. Well, you can, because if you don't want to believe, you will. So prayer is very much a part of it, because if being the prayer, if I want to be a healing presence, then I have to be the healing presence. And that's a form of prayer. That is our spirit or soul getting quiet to be a space for that person to empower and heal themselves and bring that forward. And so that's the gist of prayer. It's much more than that. So what I do frequently is I have people learn how to write their own prayers and practice. One of the things that's really important about while you're practicing to learn how to be the prayer is to vocalize it. In the beginning was the word. Well, one way of saying that is the word is an actionable expression of myself. So I have people take prayers. For example, I take the Aramaic translation of the Lord's Prayer. I don't take King James Version because King James had an intention and an agenda of why he created that prayer. But if you go to the Aramaic and you realize, oh my gosh, this means something totally different, people, when they look at it, it touches them in a different way, and then I ask them to find your resonance. So which part really fits you? And if you were to speak this on a daily basis, what would that look like? And we begin to express the core who we are as expression of the Lord's Prayer, so I can be the Lord's Prayer and have an impact for myself and those around me. So prayer is very important. It's very spiritual. I teach also the other forms of prayers, intercessional prayers, invocational prayers. Prayers are very important, but we have to be them. And if we can be them, then what the impact is they begin our healing process wherever that is.